Hey everybody, Ryan from WWE's The Bump. An absolutely incredible crown jewel is in the books. Sam, I already see you in here. And Sam, let's just get right into it because Wade Barrett called Logan Paul midway through the match with Roman Reigns, the best three-match wrestler he's ever seen in his life. And Logan sure as hell showed out. He even connected with the much talked about one lucky punch and then the most awe-inspiring leaps I've ever seen. A massive assist from Jake Paul later. None of it was still enough to stop our tribal chief. Roman Reigns hits the Superman punch, he hits the spear, and Logan Paul, for as impressive as he was, for everybody else for these past 797 days, he's not Roman Reigns. Sam, you said a lot in the build up to this. You had your clip guy working overtime. What did you make of this, I thought, genuinely incredible match?
I thought it was a great showing. I thought everything I said and all the talking that I did leading up to this match was 100% dead on. And even more so. I mean, Logan Paul was good enough to land his one lucky punch, and Roman Reigns was good enough to kick out of it. That's the levels that we're playing on right now. And yeah, I mean, here's the thing about Logan Paul. He has so much natural athletic ability he is taking to this world of sports entertainment like a fish to water. A lot of people could say, yeah, but you get the greatest of all time, Shawn Michaels, training you. No. The greatest of all time, Shawn Michaels, trains me or trains you. We're going to be in there for 15 seconds and we're going to be creamed to the canvas. It doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
fact that Logan Paul is athletic enough to pull off what he pulls off and that he can listen to coaching from a guy like Shawn Michaels and get better and better and better with each of the three matches that he's had in a WWE ring is phenomenal. Here's the problem with Logan Paul that I saw in this match. Logan Paul is a big Logan Paul fan. And for as much as we celebrated him as we were watching these incredible feats happen, Logan Paul took the time to celebrate himself as the incredible feats were happening. If Logan Paul hadn't taken time out to make a video while he was doing that incredible frog splash onto the table,
Unreal.
if Logan Paul hadn't thought for a second that he actually was Shawn Michaels and attempted to tune up the band, if Logan Paul hadn't done all of those mistakes, all of his mistakes were ego based. There were no, I mean, some of the moves that he did in that match, I've seen guys that have wrestled everywhere in the world for decades, some of the top people in the game that haven't been able to pull off moves that he pulled off as well as he pulled them off. But he
Yep.
made ego mistakes, a lot of ego mistakes. And that's what's going to slow down Logan Paul. And that along with everything else involving the Paul brothers and the vloggers that got in there and the bloodline, that's what made it so that, Logan Paul, he finished the marathon, but he came in second.
I think that's absolutely spot on. I'm going to address both your points. First off, Logan is absolutely already, and we knew this after SummerSlam, we knew it after WrestleMania, already in the discussion of maybe the best athlete in this entire company. The guy is absolutely unreal from an athletic standpoint.
I mean, you're throwing a lot of hyperboles at me today, Ryan. You're like I'm trying to agree with you here, but when you say things like the greatest leap you've ever seen in your life, the greatest athlete in the entire roster, like let's calm down and just give the man his credit without making statements that we're never going to be able to take back.
Well, I mean, dude, he was in the air for about 35 seconds. That's all I'm saying. But to that point that you just made, those are precious seconds that he wasted while taking a video of himself making those leaps. And those are precious seconds, especially when you're against the greatest of all time, 797 days as champion. Those are seconds that you can't get back and need to get done what you need to get done. That's hopefully a lesson he can learn coming out of this. But to your point, like that might just not be who he is. That we will see in the days, weeks, months, years to come with Logan Paul. Sam, I want your thoughts before we move on to anything else, because so much to take away from that main event. I want your thoughts on what I thought were two very interesting things from the Tribal Chief after the fact. One, the look on his face right after the victory, and then as much emotion as I've seen from him after a match in a very, very long time on the ramp, psyching himself up with the bloodline surrounding him. What did you make of all that?
First of all, I wish I had a Paul Heyman in my life that after every show that I do could just hold me and say, "We're all here for you, Sam. We're all here for you," because it's what Roman needed. Roman was in a bad place. And Paul Heyman embracing him and saying, "We're all here to acknowledge you. We're all here to acknowledge you. Enjoy. This is your glory." That's what I need. Somebody to go, "This is your glory." Because that's when Roman was able to turn around and go, "Yes, yes, it is my glory." That's the value of having a special counsel like Paul Heyman. Uh, I think, as big of a Roman Reigns guy as I am, you can't deny that Roman Reigns underestimated Logan Paul. Roman Reigns went in there, I think, without a ton of thought. I think without a ton of training, other than his natural ability in life, and thought he was going to be able to just kind of run over Logan Paul. He was watching his podcast instead of realizing he's, taking a master class at the Performance Center with Shawn Michaels. I think Roman Reigns got a rude awakening that he did not like. I think there were multiple times in the match where it was way closer than Roman Reigns wanted it to be or thought it should be. And I think Roman Reigns went to Saudi Arabia to do 2 minutes of work and then put his finger back in the air and didn't realize he was going to be in for the battle of a lifetime. I mean, the things that people were saying about this match on Twitter, like comparing Logan Paul to some of Roman Reigns' most fearsome foes, and he's fought the very best. I don't think Roman expected that. And that was what I took away. That even though Roman had that victory, the fact that he was annoyed about having this match, he was proven wrong in that sense.
Agreed. Roman calling out YouTubers midway through the match was really fun, by the way. Just a fun little aside. We'll talk. It was just like he's just literally calling out
I mean,
YouTubers.
look, there was something really satisfying before Jake Paul came out, because it was also amazing to see Jake Paul come out.
Yeah.
He confronts the Usos. He starts throwing those hooks. But watching the Usos beat up Logan Paul's co-hosts of his impulsive podcast. I mean, just seeing vloggers get ripped from the stands and having the best tag team in the world destroy them. There was something cathartic about it for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's I mean, an absolute melding of worlds. I mean, just like what a week for the Paul. I mean, literally 7 days ago, Jake Paul's knocking down, excuse me, one of the greatest, fighters in the history. I mean, it's all very, very wild and incredible at the same time. Really an unreal showing from Logan Paul, but absolutely, Sam, you're spot on. Roman Reigns did what Roman Reigns does. We'll talk more about it before we close out here, but harder than he thought, maybe, but ultimately the result that I think most of us thought it was, and we'll see what Logan Paul takes away from that. Will be interesting to see let's go to the beginning of the show, because it's going to be interesting to see what both Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley take away from tonight, because Lashley got a literal jump on Lesnar prior to the bell ringing, targeted Brock's knee, got the best of the beast for a period of time before Brock battled back with a fury of German suplexes and an F5. But Lesnar's knee was clearly, Sam, such a big factor here. And with it obviously plaguing him, Lashley speared him through a barricade, was able to cinch in that hurt lock. And from there, Brock was well, worse for wear, but refused to quit and somehow found a way, while after being in the hurt lock for a good amount of time, found a way to propel himself off the ropes, use momentum to get on top of Lashley, even though the hold was basically still applied, and Brock got the 3 count for the win. Sam, we then saw Lashley attack Brock after the match, reapply the hurt lock, leaving Lesnar in really, really rough shape, and you rarely see Brock in really, really rough shape. Sam, leading to the quote, Brock Lesnar win this match, or did he simply survive it?
No, Brock Lesnar won the match. Brock Lesnar put that big beastly body on top of Bobby Lashley's shoulders and got the 3 count. He did not. Brock Lesnar won the match. He deserved to win the match. I mean, the idea that you're in that hurt lock and Brock Lesnar is shouting, "I don't want to give up." Like he knows he's in this dangerous position, somehow finds the wherewithal to figure out, okay, if I can get to that corner, I can get my boots up, I can push up. Brock Lesnar is such a genius in that ring. You can even see in the replay when Brock is on top of Lashley and Lashley's not letting go of the hurt lock and he's keeping his shoulders up. You could see Brock flex his feet and push himself up, shifting his weight to the top half of him so he could get the weight down on those shoulders. It wasn't an accident that Brock ended up in that pinning position. And I think that that's something that's underestimated a lot about Brock Lesnar is with his experience in amateur wrestling, in UFC. I mean, this is a guy who is a genius on the canvas. All that said, this is the best Bobby Lashley. I'm so glad that we're getting this Bobby Lashley. I was watching with my 5-year-old son and kind of introducing him to some of the superstars as we were watching. And by the end of this match, he's screaming at the screen, "You're a cheater! You're a cheater!" as Bobby Lashley is putting that stomping to Brock Lesnar. And you're right. It's something that we rarely see. Brock Lesnar taking that kind of damage. But, when you guys so graciously had me on the bump earlier this week and earlier today as well,
Yep.
I made mention of the fact that Bobby Lashley had been on my SiriusXM show. And I was struck in a very real way by the way he was talking. He was talking in a way without a lot of humility, in the best possible way. Kind of with these expectations of himself and the way that he should be looked at. I think that a lot of people, when they go in there with Brock Lesnar, they go, "Yeah, I know this is Brock Lesnar and this is the beast and there's nobody like Brock Lesnar, but if anybody can do it, I can do it." Bobby Lashley is different. Bobby Lashley is bothered that he's not in the same conversation as Brock Lesnar. Bobby Lashley, I think, the perception that I got, feels that he and Brock are at least equals, if not Bobby's better than Brock. And that's what Bobby was trying to prove. That's why Bobby had no reverence for Brock Lesnar. He had no intimidation of the legend of Brock Lesnar. He went in there to do damage, and boy, did he.
Well, I think there's really something to that. And, I agree. So I was asking the question, but that doesn't mean I thought Brock survived. Brock won in my estimation as well. But Brock, I mean, it has to be mentioned that Bobby dominated much more than 50% of that match, probably somewhere close to 70-75. And there was controversy at the end of the Royal Rumble match that Lashley won. And I think many will say that Lesnar caught Lashley slipping here, even if you and I don't see it that way. So, Sam, are we any closer to knowing who the better man here is after now a 1-1 score after 2 matches?
That's probably my favorite part of this match, is that I leave going, good God, do I want to see more Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley matches? Because it's just two guys that are larger. And it struck me when Brock Lesnar was laying back down on the mat, and maybe it's because you don't see that all that often. Just seeing the amount of space on that canvas that Brock Lesnar's body took it just put into perspective how big these guys are. No, I don't think I can sit here and tell you after watching Crown Jewel. I can tell you who was better tonight, but I can't tell you who's better. And maybe that's because I don't want to tell you who's better, because I want to see these guys go again.
Yeah, give us best of 7. No, I agree. And I think ultimately what will be really interesting coming out of this, because obviously both are going to feel a certain type of way with how this ended tonight on both ends of the aisle. That look on Brock's face after Bobby was finally walking out after the reapplied hurt lock, after the match was over, going to be fascinating to see how Brock responds, because, again, you just don't see him like that very often. And will be really interesting to track that, much like it's been very interesting to track Bianca and Bayley over this last year and change, because with that year and change of history in play, and as vicious a stipulation as can be placed in front of you, Bianca Bailey went to war in the last women's standing match. Bailey attempted multiple innovative ways to keep Bianca down for 10, which will all come full circle in a second here. Literally put her in a case at one point. It was awesome. Also tried and true methods like kendo stick assaults, steel chair assaults, all the things. She has in every single title defense, though, Bianca, and we saw it here tonight again, fought back even when it looked like every single odd was incredibly stacked against her. Those odds then included Bailey literally barreling towards her with a golf cart, and then Bianca driving that golf cart down to ringside with Bailey on top of it. It was a safety hazard, and put her through a table not once, but twice. Then KO'd Bailey's knee first onto a chair, then stuck Bailey in a ladder and flipped the script on all the innovative ways to keep someone down for 10 by sandwiching Bailey, who was already sandwiched in the ladder under the bottom rope, making it literally impossible for Bailey to rise up before the count of 10, for Bianca to yet again retain the Raw Women's title. Sam, we run out of ways to describe how amazing Bianca Belair. We've been trying since WrestleMania. We've been succeeding, but there's only so many things to say. So what did you make of her performance here? And doesn't it seem like now after this one that this is now going to enter that territory of like, man, this is an all-time title reign?
Well, I think what made this one so unique was that I saw Bianca's adaptive nature kick in. That, Wade Barrett brought up early in the match that Bianca is not a bad person. Bianca is a good person. And that is not good in a match like this, right? That you have to be ruthless in a match like this. You literally have to try to run somebody over with an automobile in a match like this. And we saw it. What I thought won the match, what I thought was not only impressive, but won the match for Bianca, was not just her athleticism, her strength, and everything that we've seen in every other Bianca Belair match, but it was the fact that when Bailey turned it up, Bianca turned it up. That when Bailey decided to remove her conscience and just try to inflict as much physical damage, when it became clear that Bailey was putting morals aside and just doing whatever she had to do to leave with the Raw Women's Championship, I thought Bianca Belair did the same thing. A lot of people, I think, would try to say, well, I don't know. I don't really know if I feel right about this. I don't know if I feel right about that. Those are the people that would lose the title. Bianca Belair decided, oh, Bailey, this is how you want to play the game? And Bianca decided to play by Bailey's rules. And I don't think Bailey was ready for that. And I think that's what allowed Bianca Belair to bring that title home. It was very, very impressive because, I mean, you talk about how fast Logan Paul is learning. I think Bianca Belair has developed a maturity as a competitor quicker than just about anybody I've seen.
Yeah, it's, you mentioned the adaptability. That's the word for it. And just every single title match since WrestleMania. These are every title match by its very nature is high stakes, but these have been high stakes, very unique title defenses for her month after month after month since April. And she has risen to every challenge. And then usually, to your point, Sam, mid-match surpassed every challenge, usually figuring it out seemingly during the match. It's very incredible. It's very rare. There's not enough praise in the world to give Bianca Belair. She's incredible. Sam, you mentioned Wade, though. He also said something that caught my ear halfway through the match. I'm curious for your thoughts. Bailey has now come up short in multiple attempts to win the Raw Women's title from Bianca. Wade said, well, if Bailey doesn't win this one, it's very likely the back of the line. Do you think it's now back of the line for Bailey, or because she's Bailey and because Damage Control had a big night in other ways, which we'll talk about in a second, do you think Bailey's not going to allow herself to go to the back of the line, whatever that may mean?
Well, I think that might be an exaggeration on Wade Barrett's part, which is not the most difficult thing in the world to believe. I don't think, I think Bailey is not at the front of the line anymore, but I think Bailey's very far from the back of the line. I don't think that a couple of losses is going to take somebody on Bailey's level and move them all the way to the back. No, Bailey, even when she's not on the surface, is always just beneath the surface. So while yes, I think It's time to start looking at other challengers. I don't think Bailey is ever going to be that far away.
I tend to agree with you, and I think a big reason why you can say that with confidence and why many will likely agree, including me, is because Damage Control still had a big night, even though they came short of that goal of the Raw Women's title. Because with their women's tag team titles reigns not even 5 days old, Alexa Bliss and Asuka seem more than prepared to make their first defense. But Dakota and Io came in with a game plan, and Sam, I thought, executed it to perfection. They made frequent tags to isolate Asuka for a large portion of the match. When Asuka was finally able to get Alexa in there, Alexa got Dakota and Io reeling, which allowed her and Asuka to take control. But just when it looked like Alexa was about to connect with Twisted Bliss for what you got to presume was at least a very possible, if not a very likely win, Nikki Cross did what we've seen her do in recent weeks. She rushed in behind the ref's back. The ref didn't see any of this, took out her former best friend, allowing Dakota to pin Alexa for what was then an academic 3 count. Sam, regardless of what people think about their tactics on Mondays or even tonight in terms of how they got the win, what does it say about the resiliency of Io Sky and Dakota Kai to be able to come back less than a week after losing those titles and now be champions yet again?
Well, I mean, I think it tells everything that I and a lot of people have been saying about Damage Control. You can't, everybody can have an off night, especially when you don't go in prepared for that off night. But at the end of the day, the Damage Control is a unit. You tell the Damage Control with any kind of advance notice, this is the challenge that's going to be in front of you. And you're dealing with a very different team. I think that's what we saw tonight. I think that luck is going to happen to any team on any night. And look, Alexa Bliss and Asuka are two of the best female competitors in the history of WWE. I mean, talk about a dream team, talk about a power force. This is a tag team that, as long as they're together, is going to stay high in the rankings of the women's tag team division. But being a unit, I think, is what separates Damage Control. And and it doesn't hurt that Nikki Cross. I have no idea. Here's two things I have no idea about: what Nikki Cross's motivations are. And I will ask once again, Ryan, as I've asked many times on these shows, where are these referees getting their degrees from? Are they just passing those stripes out to anyone who wants a shirt? Because the amount of damage that Nikki Cross was able to do while the referee wasn't even unconscious, she just had her back turned, was like, what do you think all that noise is? Turn around, referee. But you know what? That's not my fight. If Asuka and Alexa Bliss want to bring it up, bring it up. But Damage Control certainly benefited from the fact that WWE has a referee problem.
There was a lot going on. There's 4 people in the ring. There's
Yeah, you
five.
should. That's the job. Of course, there's four people in the ring. It's a tag team
I'm
match. It's
just
two
trying
on
to play
two.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate for the sake of playing devil's advocate. You come here every month and say the referees are. It's a tough job. It's a tough gig. Let's. But
Doesn't seem that tough to me.
All right. We're gonna give you the stripes next month. We'll see how you do.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would, well, maybe for you. But let's stay in the tag division, but move to the men's side of things. With the Usos inching, I'm now imagining you as a referee just bumbling and fumbling your way through every match.
I'd be like Sean. I'd cut the sleeves off my shirt and wear real short shorts.
You've been lifting. You've been lifting.
I'd look good.
Yeah, the Usos inching ever closer to the longest tag team championship reign in WWE history. Jimmy and Jay encountered an incredibly game brawling brute squad that, no surprise, it's in the name, brought the fight early and often to Jimmy and Jay and aimed to take advantage of Jay's potentially broken wrist. We'll find out more about that throughout the week, I'm sure. Butch did massive damage to Jay's hand, allowing Ridge and Butch to have two incredibly close calls that almost won them the titles. But in the end, Jimmy and Jay found a way, like they always do, like the bloodline always does, as we saw later in the night. Hit the damnedest 1D off the ropes that I ever saw to retain the titles as they now eye their title defense this Friday against the New Day. Sam will, of course, wait and see what becomes of Jay's MRI, but wasn't this as symbolic and indicative of the Usos' reign as any of their defenses? Never can count them out, and they always find a way.
Well, first, a couple of things. when you talk about the Usos, this is why I try to avoid hyperbole, because while Logan Paul is doing these incredible dives and we've seen him do it in 3 different matches, the Usos have been doing these dives every single night for years and years and years now. I mean, the Usos are they're a different level. I love the Brawling Brutes. I mean, just one of the most enjoyable teams to watch, just because they're ruthless, they're strategic, and they're rough, they're mean. They go in there to cause damage and to specifically go after vulnerabilities. They think about the vulnerabilities of their opponent, and that's what they go after. I love that. And I think in any other world where maybe the Usos didn't exist, there's no doubt in my mind that the Brawling Brutes would have tag team gold. But we're living in the Usos era. And while, yes, it does seem like time is starting to catch up to them, meaning that people are starting to learn more and more about the Usos, I think the Usos are maybe bringing everybody's skill level up because they've raised the standard. And it feels like every title defense gets a little bit more difficult and a little bit more difficult for the Usos. They are earning that record that I think they will get, and I hope they will get on SmackDown on Friday. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that we've seen the last of the Brawling Brutes in this conversation, and I don't think we should, because I think we're just scratching the surface on what these Europeans are all about.
They're amazing, and they showed out here. Let's talk about SmackDown 1 second, just real quick before I forget. Jey Uso, for like the last 2 minutes of this match, his T-shirt was like accidentally tied to his feet, and like somehow drop kicked one of the Brutes on the second rope. I have no idea how he did it.
Look,
We're talking.
here's the other thing about Jey Uso that you gotta keep in mind. He has to be great, because if he's not
Yeah.
great, he's gonna have a lot to answer for.
Yes.
Like nobody else has that. Nobody on the roster has the pressure that Jey Uso has. Jey Uso has a tribal chief that is watching everything that he does. And any mistake that Jey Uso makes, he knows he's not just going to have to live with, he's going to have to answer for when he gets back behind that curtain. So I believe that pressure has made great even greater when it comes to Jey Uso, but that's make or break pressure for sure.
No, no doubt. And he fought hurt tonight and looked incredible, quite frankly. I really thought so. The Brutes were impressive, like I said. You already touched on it. Let's look forward real quick. Assuming all things remain equal and history literally on the line, and yes, you already said you're probably leaning towards the Usos, and you have bloodline bias as maybe greater than anyone other than humans in the bloodline. How do you see Friday playing out, given the fact that Jay's hand might be banged up? They just had a really tough match. You lean Usos, but how do you see it playing out with these two teams that know each other better than anybody in the entire company?
I mean, look, I've New Day versus the Usos, and I've said this every time they've competed. Is one of those matches that if they were like, "Hey, next year we're gonna see these guys wrestle twice a week. We're gonna have 100 Usos versus New Day matches in 2023," I'd be like, "This year's sounding great already. I can't wait." If there's one tag team that could halt the record, I would say the New Day is in contention. But man, even if the New Day is arguably the greatest tag team of all time, they don't have the bloodline to answer to. They don't have Roman Reigns to answer to. And if I saw Roman Reigns' face at the end of this show, he's in a bad mood,
Yeah.
okay? He's in a bad mood. If that's not enough to get you to a victory, I don't know what will be.
Fair point. It's a fair point. Let's move forward. Steel cage. How about that? Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross. They went back and forth, absolutely brutal fashion, in a match that looked like both had it for the taking at several different points. A superplex from Drew to Kross looked like it had the match won there. But just as Drew almost escaped the cage, Scarlett struck with mace yet again to both Drew and the official manning the door and the key on the outside. Let's keep that in mind for a minute from now. Kross wasn't able to capitalize on the interference, as despite not even really being able to see, not quite sure how he did it, Drew battled back and took down Kross. Scarlett tried to get one up on Drew by relocking the door and holding on to the key, but ever resourceful, Drew began to scale the cage, and in a photo finish, was able to beat Cross out of it after a rare mistake by Scarlett, where she was not able to reopen the door to the cage fast enough. Drew got the win, and Cross, talk about people kind of losing it on the ramp after the match, just kept screaming on the ramp after the fact that this isn't how it was supposed to go. He said it multiple times. Sam, we'll get to that piece of it, but first, after several months of really tough and close losses for Drew, how massive a win is this for Drew McIntyre as he now looks to get back on track at the end of this year and as we start to eye 2023?
It's huge. It's what Drew needed, and Drew knew that, and I think that's why we saw it go the way we did. I said after the last Premium Live event that Drew should have expected what he got from Scarlett. That you've got to know when those things are happening. I think Drew went back to the drawing board and re-strategized and rethought about all the elements, even though this is a cage match, all the elements that he's got to be prepared for. This is a different Drew McIntyre. This was a Drew McIntyre that wasn't resting on laurels. This is a Drew McIntyre that had no expectations for himself other than to be the best that he can be. I think that Drew came out well prepared, and a well prepared Drew McIntyre is about as dangerous a superstar as you're going to get. He's got so much ability anyway. So when he really puts his mind to it, he can conquer anything, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, he knew his surroundings, and he knew his surroundings when he likely, like I said, probably wasn't even able to see. That's why he's Drew McIntyre, and a lot of people aren't. Karrion Kross and Scarlett, though, Sam, they're all about laying down very specific, intricate plans and executing them. That's what we've seen from them since they've come back and since they reemerged. This is the first real hiccup, I think, for them since that reemergence. So how do you think they'll respond to it?
Yeah, I mean, you heard it. It wasn't supposed to go like this. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Karrion Kross was saying it. And that's because a lot of people think that Karrion Kross is dangerous because of what he does physically, just because of the blunt force that he uses, the joy that he takes in rendering people unconscious. And yeah, that is dangerous. But the real danger of Karrion Kross is the brain game that he plays, is the thought that he puts in, the planning, the chess like nature of the way he plays this game. Uh, I think that there's a fine line when you're playing the game the way Karrion Kross and Scarlett play. And that's that sometimes when you're cerebral, you can overthink. And I think that's what happened. I think that Scarlett and Karrion Kross spent so much time planning that they overthought the whole thing. They missed what was right in front of their face, and it cost him this time. Drew McIntyre won the match. He should have won the match. He came in ready for it, and he proved to the world what he's capable of.
Yeah, they set themselves up for a situation where everything had to go perfectly. And again, to their credit, it often has since that reemergence. But Drew McIntyre was adaptable as adaptable could be, paid huge dividends for him tonight. That was a personal situation. And the personal situation between the Judgment Day and the OC got all the more personal tonight in a really action packed 6-man tag. Judgment Day aimed to take control of the pace early, but AJ, Gallows, and Anderson were just relentless in battling back. In the critical moments, it looked as though AJ was about to connect with a phenomenal forearm, but the decisive factor, as always, Rhea Ripley blindsided him. Sam, you'll enjoy this. It was behind the ref's back.
Of course it was.
Yeah,
Everything is. Everything is. All the referees have is back. It's just two backsides.
It was only 2 matches out of 7. It's a decent ratio for the.
No, it's not. 2 out of 7 is terrible.
It's a math score for me. Allowing that, all of that allowed Finn to connect with the coup de grace to earn Judgment Day the victory. Sam, Rhea Ripley came strutting into Crown Jewel with a Beth Phoenix hairstyle, mocking her relentlessly with it, and then was invaluable. Let me repeat that, invaluable in getting Judgment Day the win. Speaking of that invaluability, can her value even be quantified at this point?
Well, look, first of all, the fact that Wade Barrett said that Rhea Ripley was walking around. Rhea Ripley didn't say she was inspired by Beth Phoenix. She said she was inspired by the late Beth
Yeah,
Phoenix, which
yeah.
is just, I mean, the levels of disrespect, but who can get away with it better than Rhea Ripley? At this point, this is Rhea's world, and we're all living in it. And on that note, I would like to say that Michael Cole has been getting a lot of compliments lately because of he just seems to be in the pocket, especially at premium live events. And I tweeted about it. I think it's true. He's somehow leveled up even further, and people know how great I think he is. But the level of disrespect and bias that he shows towards specifically Dominic and Rhea Ripley is not bordering on unprofessional. It's completely crossed the line. It's insane. He has some kind of grudge against Dominic and Rhea Ripley that is he's like a referee out there that's getting in the way of his job. And I don't understand why Michael Cole, the greatest to ever do it, can't put his personal feelings aside and just comment on the action, which is generally Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio coming out victorious.
It's interesting because Michael Cole and Bailey, they kind of have like a fun tay-to-tay. There's nothing fun about Michael Cole's disdain for Rhea Ripley.
He doesn't like her at all.
He
He hates
actively
Rhea Ripley.
dislikes her.
He hates Dominic Mysterio, and that's not right. I mean, I don't know. I don't. This it's unfair. Quite frankly, it's unfair to Dominic and Rhea that they would be subjected to that. That the voice of Friday Night SmackDown is doing that to them. That's not right.
I mean, it was unabashed. He had one call near the end of this match where it was just, you're absolutely right. I get
He calls him a punk. He calls Dominic a punk.
It's like if you put truth serum on Michael Cole, I think he actually might like Bailey. He would never admit it. He does not like these two people.
No,
he
he
does not
doesn't.
like them.
No.
Sam, let's move to the OC side of things because Sam, every couple months, we have to ask. I have to ask you a question like this. The OC has tried time and again, and they've had a few small victories, but the wars thus far, have been won by the Judgment Day. So, Sam, is it time for the OC? Now, granted, the OC has only been back together for a couple weeks, but AJ Styles has been trying to crack this code of the Judgment Day for many, many months now. Is it time for the OC, specifically AJ, to move on, or does he just keep chipping away even after tonight?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, the OC has only been reformed for a hot minute. They're just getting started. They're just getting warmed up. I don't take anything away from the big LG, Carl Anderson, and AJ Styles. They've been brothering softly for a long time. The Judgment Day is a different type of animal. Everybody can have an off night. Look, the OC is at this point a legacy in sports entertainment in professional wrestling. It is as big a faction as you can get. It's got roots, deep roots that run internationally. So no, I don't. This doesn't reflect to me poorly on the OC. Tonight just wasn't the OC's night.
And hey, Sam, how about this? If the referee's back isn't turned, who knows what happens?
I can't do it again. I'll get in trouble. I can't keep doing with the referees. But you're not wrong. I'll
Okay,
say that. You're not wrong.
And rare for you to say that about me. So that does say something.
Very rare.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Thanks for that. It started with a test of strength. It then featured Omos absolutely dominating Braun Strowman for a lengthy period of time, but concluded with Braun weathering the storm. And just when it looked like all hope was lost, Omos was very close to winning this match. Braun was able to use veteran instincts, evade an attack from Omos to connect with a running power slam for the win. Sam, I will say this. I thought even in defeat that this was maybe the best I've ever seen Omos look, but no awards for second place. At the end of the day, the story of the match for me is that Braun was able to stay in the fight just long enough to make the most of an opportunity, as small as it was, for the win. What is your main takeaway from this one, the Battle of the Giants?
Yeah, I will tell you, like Act 1 and Act 2 of this 3-act physical match, it was all Amos, and I was super impressed by it. I'm with you. I think he's getting better and better and more dangerous and more dangerous. I think there was more than once that Braun Strowman was thrown off his game a little bit. I don't think Braun Strowman is used to being manhandled. And that's the difference in a match like this, that Braun found somebody that could manhandle him. But look, I mean, even though Amos has the size advantage, and even though Braun Strowman hasn't been in a situation like that before, Braun Strowman has been in there with some of the best. Braun Strowman has a pretty significant win-loss record behind him. I mean, Braun Strowman has done a lot in the WWE, and sometimes I think people forget about it because he ends up in the giant conversation a lot. But yeah, I mean, definitely not. I would say it's definitely not a night that Amos needs to go home feeling disappointed. We also had MVP taken out of the equation, so it was probably a little bit off from how he usually feels. But, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, Braun Strowman won, but how many times, how many people can manhandle Braun Strowman like that? And if anybody wants to go up to Amos and say, hey, man, now that you lost that match, do you still have it in you? He'll squash their face like he did to Michael Cole at that press
Yeah.
conference, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think again, we make it clear every month that we do not award, there's no, moral victories here, but he can hold his hat on what he did tonight and build off of it. Will be interesting to see how he rebounds from this. Sam, we of course, we've gone through all the matches, but we have to talk about what we saw from Bray Wyatt. A man battling himself in forces that we probably can't even really begin to comprehend. You and I were actually talking about this just the other day. I saw a lot more confliction, but I'm curious as to what you took away from it. I have more questions than answers. Do you have the same?
Well, look, I mean, every time we see Bray Wyatt out there, I end up doing a 20-minute analysis on my podcast. You know, he's out there for 4 minutes, and I have to sit there for 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to decipher every syllable, every visual, everything that this guy is saying because there's so much going on and so much that we don't know. But I to me, my immediate, and I'll have to watch it, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times to really start to pinpoint everything like I end up doing every single week with Bray Wyatt. But to me, it was the phrase, just put the mask, just leave the mask on, I believe is what Uncle Howdy said.
Yeah.
Leave the mask on. Which leads me to believe that Bray Wyatt, as we've seen him, the real Bray Wyatt, which I think is true, I think still has the potential to become a very less likable, more fearsome beast with the simple application of a mask, which honestly, the way Bray's talking, the way Bray treated that poor Grip on SmackDown on Friday, I don't know. I don't know how much nice Bray we have left to enjoy.
I think that's a fair takeaway from everything we've seen over the last, 24-ish hours. Sam, before we wrap this up, I will, final thoughts. If you want to go back to Roman and Logan, if you want to hit your highlight of the night in general, the floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the story of the night, it was a great show top to bottom.
Agreed.
I mean, so much spectacle, so much great competition. But, I think the story of the show is the fact that Logan Paul gave us one of the classic Roman Reigns matches. When years from now, when Roman is still champion, and we look back on what the last 2 years have been, somehow this YouTuber who's only had 2 matches before this came in to Crown Jewel and gave us one of the classic Roman Reigns matches. And I will tell you this. I don't think that the Paul brothers are going to leave well enough alone. I don't think that the Paul brothers versus bloodline rivalry is finished. And I believe that the next time Roman sees Logan Paul, Roman won't be brushing him off. Roman won't be undervaluing Logan Paul. I think Roman Roman now has a chip on his shoulder. Roman has something that he wants to prove. And if I'm Logan Paul and I'm being honest with myself, I have to know that the Roman that came in to Crown Jewel, as dangerous as he was, is nowhere near as dangerous as the Roman Reigns that exited Crown Jewel. By the way, still the WWE undisputed Universal Champion.
Yeah, I mean, that Roman we saw at the very end, like I said, I have not seen that type of passion from him in a very long time. And that's not to say he has not been passionate during this historic reign, because he absolutely has been. But I absolutely think you tapped into something there, and that Logan got something out of Roman that he might not like seeing in the future. Uh, so much to look forward to, Sam. This was a blast. For all the Crown Jew fallout, check out Raw this Monday night, 8/7 Central on USA Network. Get more Sam on Not Sam Wrestling, and Jim and Sam weekdays at 8 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM. And for a full breakdown of Crown Jewel, Raw, and everything else, maybe even this Spaces, who the hell knows? Check out myself, Kayla, and Matt break it all down like we always do on The Bump this Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern on Peacock and all of WWE streaming social channels. Sam, can't wait for your ref debut next month. It's going to be sick. And everybody else, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Sam, I appreciate you, even when you yell at me. Have a great night.